Hello and welcome back to the SME Corporate Governance Bootcamp. And in this section, we're going to tackle the topic of drafting a vision statement for the business. It's very, very surprising still today that so few companies have in place a formal written vision written by the owners as to the future direction of the business. And without that as a starting point, the obvious issue is that you don't know where you're going, and secondly, your team and those around you don't know where you're going, and obviously that means that they don't know what their role is, they don't have clarity on the future, and that creates all sorts of issues. So it's my argument that drafting a vision statement is the absolute starting point for good corporate governance in the business. So let's just recap also on where this series of blogs is intending to take us. And as I said before, this is a focus for small and medium enterprises, typically about 5+ employees. We're not here to talk about compliance, which is the usual focus of corporate governance. We're here to talk about practical steps you can take to set your business on the right track. It's very important, as I've said before, to think and act big, just like large corporations. The fact that they give more focus to corporate governance only is because they have usually more resources in place. But if you adopt the mentality of thinking and acting big, that's going to give you the mindset to tackle these issues, which perhaps before has not been done. As before also, it's very important to state that the journey of an SME owner is a personal journey, because all the wealth and all the future success is tied up in how the business performs, as opposed to large corporations where typically CEOs are stewarding the resources and the funds provided by shareholders, and their stake obviously is less personal. We'll also be talking through the video blogs using a series of what I call governance riffs, and these are just statements that we're going to repeat over and over again so that they become embedded in the language that you use when talking about governance, and also they help you to focus your activities. And it's very important to state again and to keep restating that every business can be improved. No matter how well you think you're performing, there must be and there are areas where you can improve the business. And lastly, to say we're not looking to provide fancy slides or fancy graphics in these presentations. It's more focused on simply giving the ideas and helping you to transport those into actions and practical steps. So let's move on and talk about the vision statement and some of the basics that have to be in place to get a good vision statement together. I want to talk firstly just about some basic definitions. And still, among clients and people that I come across, it is surprising how the basic terms that are used in a vision statement are not correctly used. So I want to firstly talk about definitions and talk about the high-level elements of a business statement, and looking at this from a perspective of 3 to 5 years into the future. The first one is the mission. And the mission is basically saying, what is the core purpose of your business? What is it you do, which is right at the center of all your activities? The second one is vision. And that is saying, where do you see this business in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you want to take the business? Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? And then lastly is strategy. And strategy is simply, what are the things you're going to do to get there? And those three elements, mission, vision and strategy, are high-level elements, and they are focused typically between 3 and 5 years into the future. More short term, and that is between 12 and 18 months from now, you have three elements also that should form part of your vision statement. Objectives. What are the short-term targets you want to put in place for the business? Tactics. What are the short-term actions you want to take in order to achieve your objectives? And lastly, key performance indicators, or KPIs as they are known for short. And they are simply short-term measures which show you how well you are progressing towards achieving your objectives and at a higher level your vision. So those basic definitions need to be in place, and it's really important that you use consistent language when you're talking about the vision with your colleagues, with investors, whoever it is, that they are clear about the definitions you're using and the terms you're using. Next, in terms of the basics, I have learned over time some good insights as to what are the basic elements should be in place for a vision statement. The length of the vision statement shouldn't be any longer than 2 pages of A4, the front and back of one sheet of paper. If your vision goes beyond that, you're not focused and you're being very wordy. Obviously, all the language, all the format, all the content needs to be clear and concise. And lastly, any of the targets that you set or any of the language that you use should be, as they say, SMART, S-M-A-R-T. And that means the language should be S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for relevant, and T that there should be time-bound element in the target. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And when you're writing your targets, they should be structured in a smart way. Next, here's some guidance on the content that you can have in your vision statement. Remember, 2 pages. So at the beginning of your vision statement, you should set out your mission, your vision, and your strategy. So your mission, what is the core purpose of our business, in a couple of sentences. Your vision, where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years from today? And your strategy, what are the 3 to 5 things that you are going to do to help you achieve your vision? And that requires a great deal of thinking and a great deal of focus, and it's not easy, but that's your starting point for the content of your vision statement. Then below that, there are a series of subtopics, and I want to run through those briefly to help you to do it. Now, every one of these can be tailored, they can be developed, you can have your own set of topics, but typically what I've found is very useful, especially when we talk about the purpose of the vision statement. These are some topics that you can include in your vision statement. The first one is our business, and that is about, in 2 short sentences, describe what is the core activity of what you do in the business. What is the passion behind the business? In other words, why do you do what you do? And then lastly, what makes the business different from competitors? So if you can put those 3 elements into 2 or 3 sentences, and you're describing in a very concise way your business, that's an amazing insight that you will develop, especially when you're talking to others about your business. The next section or subtopic would be our clients. And here, what you are trying to describe is, describe the core customer of your business. Describe what they look like, describe where they're located, describe what they want, describe what they are looking for in the future, and also describe what you'd like them to say about you. So if you can accurately describe the basic client or customer of the products or services from your business, then that's going to be a huge advantage when you start talking to that inside the organization and of course outside. The next subtopic is location. Here it's about describing the geographic scope or the markets where you want to operate, and you're going to define also some criteria for selecting new markets, and you're going to define those criteria as perhaps to say what markets you won't enter. This is really important because when somebody comes along in the business and says we'd like to go to a new market or we'd like to look at a new type of customer, you've already got these statements in place in the vision, and that cuts short a lot of conversation and a lot of wasted time. That's not to say it can't change, but it is important to have those points of reference in your business discussions. The fourth area is financial, and this is really important. These are setting out some financial objectives for the next 12 months, typically for a business cycle, which is 12 months, and that can be either January to December or July to June, whatever your financial year runs to. And typical elements of those will be revenue targets, will be net profit targets, will be return on capital employed targets, might be average growth targets, it might be returns for investors, it might include your capital expenditure, and it might also include some of the financial systems and controls that you are going to put in place. And of course, each of those metrics you can translate into a key performance indicator or a KPI. So if you get the basic financial targets together that you want to have in place for the business, clearly that's going to inform your business plan, it's going to inform a whole load of other activities that you have in the business. The fifth area is products, and this is talking about what are the core products or services that you are selling in your business. And it will also include perhaps some new product initiatives or research and development objectives and targets that you will have for the next 3 to 5 years or 12 to 18 months. Sixth element is people, and this is talking about high-level objectives and targets for the people in your business. You may want to develop your leadership team. You may want to embark on some training and development. You may want to change the human resource practices. You may want to strengthen and recruit your organization in terms of its leadership team, employees, etc., etc. So put in place a couple of sentences or a paragraph about what are the high-level objectives for the people in the business. The seventh area is the brand. And this is really important. Every organization, every company has a brand, and you will have some specific marketing objectives or specific marketing projects or expenditures that you will want to take out over the next 3 to 5 years or in the 12 months business cycle. It may also define what are your objectives for the brand. You may want to change what people understand about your brand, etc., etc. So those objectives you can put in that section. The second last area is culture, and this is really important. It's not just about what you are going to do in terms of your vision, but it's also about how you are going to operate as a business, how you are going to operate as a collection or a team of people towards achieving the vision. And it's really important here to talk about and to think about the values that you have for your people and the way that you operate externally, and the sort of culture. You may want to have a very entrepreneurial culture. You may want to have values which is all about ethics or some commitment to the environment or whatever it is that's important for you. But the whole area of culture is all about how you will achieve your vision and how you will operate as a company. And then lastly, there can be a section which talks about some of the major projects that you want to embark on over the next 3 to 5 years or in the next 12 to 18 months. This might be, for example, to introduce a new IT system. This might be to expand into a new region. This might be to acquire another company. This might be to go into another area of activity, whatever it is. And it's really important here that you stress a short description of the project, why you are doing it, how you're going to achieve it, and how you're going to measure the progress towards achieving it. And of course, what are the success criteria and what are the milestones that you're going to use to ensure you're on the right track. So those series of projects are very, very important. And of course, lastly, you will also want to make clear who is accountable for the success of that project. So if you can put in place those elements of talking about your business, your clients, your location, the financial objectives, products, people and brand, culture and your projects, you will have gone a very large way towards having a clear vision for the business. Now lastly, what you should put in there are 3 other elements. Firstly, your exit plan. And that means if you were to sell the business, if you were to leave the business in the next 3 to 5 years, what is your plan? What are the conditions under which you're going to leave the business? What are the objectives behind you leaving the business, and how will you do that? So a paragraph about your exit plan to leave the business. It may be succession plan. You may want to pass it on to someone in the family, or you may want to put in place a management team to take over the business or to sell to a competitor, whatever it is. Write down what is your exit plan in the next 3 to 5 years if you have one. You may also then have a section for you on a personal basis where you will write out 3 to 5 personal objectives regarding the business that you have in the next 3 to 5 years. One might be, for example, you want to step out from the day-to-day running of the business. One might be that you want to develop a succession plan for one of your colleagues or one of your family. Whatever it is, write out 3 to 5 objectives for the next 3 to 5 years that you have on a personal level, and put that into the vision statement. And then lastly, you sign it. It's a commitment. It's a serious commitment for you and the business over the next 3 to 5 years, and you sign it and you date it so that it becomes a formal document. Now, all of that requires a great deal of thought. It requires perhaps you to consult with people. It requires you to do a few drafts. I often say to business owners, this is something that you would do in a weekend, and where you would consult with family and friends. You might get a glass of wine when you're doing it, you might not. It depends what your own style is when you're doing some thinking, some deep thinking about the future of the business. So that's a really important activity, and I can't stress how important it is to set everything else in motion. So let's now just try and use that thinking process and just put it in some context. So your vision statement, basically, if you've done it right and you've drafted it right, and it's a thorough, deeply worded and deeply thought through document, it becomes the corporate constitution for all the decisions that you're going to make in the next 3 to 5 years. Every time you make a major decision, every time you take on a new project, every time you take on some element which is part of your vision statement, you can refer to the vision statement, and that will tell you whether or not you should go forward. It's the constitution for all the major decisions in the business. It's very important also that you review the vision statement at least annually, And of course, you would review it if there are big events like what's happening in the world at the moment with COVID-19, or if there are some change in circumstances or whatever may happen on a big significant basis. But at least you should review the vision statement on an annual basis and see how you're doing, see what needs to be changed, see what needs to be adapted. The vision statement also becomes the major input for the business plan. And this is often a place of disconnect that I see for small and medium businesses. The vision statement is the thing that defines the criteria to establish the business plan. If there's not a connection between the vision statement and the business plan, then there's a complete disconnect right across the business, and that is often a source of confusion and wasted time and effort. So have your business plan in place and then use that as guidance for the business plan. And of course, what also comes from the vision and then in turn from the business plan is a series of performance targets over the 12-month business cycle, so that you can measure the performance of your business versus the vision. And that's really important. That lets you know, whether it's on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, how you are progressing towards achieving your vision. So I hope that's convinced you as to why the vision statement is so important. And just to wrap up, the key concepts here in this session are: draft a formal 2-page vision statement for your business. If you have one, it needs to be updated. If you don't have one, I can't stress enough the importance of developing this 2-page business and vision that you will have for your business. And I've described, I hope in detail, some tips how you will draft that. And as I said, your vision becomes the corporate constitution for all the major decisions, for all the major projects, and for essentially everything you're going to be doing in the business. So if you spend time drafting that vision statement, you're really going to get clarity and focus in your business. So once again, I hope that's been useful. If you have any comments or feedback on this, please email me or connect on Twitter. And our next topic, which we'll be addressing, will be around drafting a business plan, and I look forward to that. Thanks very much. Hello and welcome back to the SME Corporate Governance